Welcome to the Learn to RV podcast, where we support, inspire, and empower you 1 mile at a time.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Learn to RV podcast. We are here tonight talking about teenagers on the road. Are you raising road warriors? You know, I didn't plan to raise all of my kids on the road. It was supposed to be a short trip. My oldest was 13 when we hit the road, and now he's 25, almost 26.
Wow.
And so he's moved out a long time ago. But my youngest, who was 1 when we hit the road, is now hitting those teenage years. So we're going to talk today about teenagers on the road. Are we ruining their lives? Some people say so. Are we making it way better? Maybe. Let's dive into that today. So I'm going to start with Tasha today and say, how old? I know we've talked about it before, but your kids were a little bit older when you hit the road, and they were part of the decision-making process. So
They definitely
can you
were.
talk a little bit how the importance of that was for you as you entered this lifestyle?
Yeah. So my kids were, David was entering his sophomore year of high school, I think. Sophomore? And yes, and he was in his sophomore year of high school, and Rosewood was in their senior year of high school. And Matt and I had wanted to do this when we retired, and we talked about inviting the kids to come along with us when we did that. And we had some passing members of our family kind of suddenly. And one at what we felt to be a very young age. And it really made us just go, there's no guarantee that this retirement age is going to happen, or that whenever it does come, that our kids are going to want to like pack up their families and come with us. So we sat down with our kids and said, would you guys want to do this with us? Would you want to sell everything, pack up, and go? And at the time, Rosewood was talking about taking a gap year. And David had decided to go from public school to online learning through his school district. He didn't want to return to campus. So it worked out for us in terms of education and what they wanted to do for their education. So Rosewood was 17, and that would have made David, I have to do the math. David would have been 14, and now Rosewood is getting ready to turn 21. And no, this is all backwards. When we moved in, Rosewood was 18, was officially 18, and David was 15. That's where we were at. Yeah. It feels like we've been doing this forever, but it was not that long ago. So yeah, Rosewood was 18, David was 15, and they were getting ready to turn 16 and 19. And so, we sat down, we had a full family meeting. We talked about the pros and cons. What does this mean? And it was all or nothing. We really just said, like, we don't want one single person of the family to be a no. So if it's a no from anybody, we're not going to do this. And everybody said yes. So
That's awesome. Jen, your dynamic's a little different. You were homeschooling before you hit the road, right?
Barely, mostly because we were preparing to hit the road. I mean, when we hit the road, I only had one that was school age, and it was just barely school age. So she did go to a half a year of kindergarten, and then we're like, well, we're going to be going full time soon. So we didn't see a reason in her continuing public school. So we brought her home the second semester as we were continuing to prepare. And then that next fall we took off. So we started with real littles, and now I've got a 15-year-old, a almost 13-year-old, 11 and 9-year-old. And they've definitely grown up on the road. And we've talked, a few different times. Every once in a while I'll say, do you guys wish you had a different life? Would you like to try the house life or school life or do things different? And all of my kids say no. They really enjoy this lifestyle and they would like to maintain it. They don't really have an interest in settling down. Some of them even talk about, when they turn of age and they move out, that they want to just buy an RV and keep traveling, and they don't necessarily want to stop and go anywhere. But we'll see how that all changes over the years because they're still young. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, my kids planned with some of their friends from the road our first couple of years. So when we started, there wasn't everybody out here doing it like there is now. And I think that there's a cycle to this lifestyle, and it's a
Mhm.
hard cycle. And we'll get talking about that here in a little bit. But there weren't that many families out here for us. So our first winter in Florida, we were at a very popular resort called Thousand Trails Orlando, and there was a whopping 13 families in the park. And we all came together like the night before we were all leaving for the season and just got together. But that felt like so many families back then. And now you can go
so
to a
few.
rally, or now you can go to a rally, you can go to TTO now and easily find 50 to 70 families just in the park in the winter
Yeah,
time. So
easily.
it's a very different experience. But, with that experience, as the community's grown and changed, so has the dynamics. There's a lot of, things
Mhm.
that the kids deal with now that maybe they didn't deal with when my kids were younger. I think that my oldest ones found it easier to make friends no matter who you were, because I think that there's been a lot of division in this community. And so I think it's been hard on my kids for sure, um, to make those decisions and find those places where they fit. But I think there's a lot of circles now. And so just like anywhere, there's
Mhm.
cliques. And so let's call them what they
Yep.
are. So, you know, I think the hardest thing is getting past that. But going back for us wasn't a choice either, because our first year on the road, we did go back to the town we settled down in after Frank retired, and the kids there didn't get them anymore.
Mhm.
And so I always say we travel to the oldest one's heart's desire. So we really take into account our kids and their friendships and where their friends are going to be for the season. And so we try to be very mindful of that in what I call our off season. And so
Mhm.
how do you make that happen for your kids, Jen?
I don't know. It's a bit of a different dynamic for us because I can't say that our kids have a lot of friends that they keep up with or stuff like that. Um, a lot of times, we'll have conversations like, okay, what do we want to do this winter? I mean, we kind of discuss as a family going into each season, like, what do we want to do? What does it look like? They do get some say, but a lot of it will depend upon like where our family sits financially or other things. Like, do we need to look for a place to camp host? Do we need to look for a place to work camp? Can we just go and chill for a season? So we kind of start there. And then based off of that, we'll say, okay, kids, what direction, do you guys lean towards going? Like just recently, so we're going to be heading to Florida for the winter here in a little bit. And our first plans were we were going to go straight south and go to Texas and then head east. And, we were going to stay with a friend in Lubbock and then head east and see a of our family friends of ours that are like, that we traveled with last year, and we were going to see them for a week and kids and everything. And that was going to be great. And then we were going to go on and see more family on our way to Florida. But then, as it turns out, if we did that, then we weren't going to get a chance to see my parents, you know. And so it was a decision like, okay, what are we going to do? Because they're stuck in Illinois right now. You know, do we still go and see the friends that we're so desperately wanting to see, or do we go and see our family because it's, the only chance we're going to get to see them until who knows when? So it was a hard dynamic, but then the girls all agreed, with me and my husband that, going to see family was probably the smartest thing we needed to do. So we made that tough decision and altered our plans to going to Florida via, by way of Illinois this year. So, including them helps a lot, because if they get to be part of the decision, then even if it's a tough decision or they have to give something else up, like because they were part of it, like it just makes everything go so much easier.
For sure. What about you, Tasha? Have you found that your kids connect well with other kids on the road, or has that been a challenge for you?
I think the challenge that we found is that when we hit up a campground, the majority of the events that you see planned are for smaller kids. But no, the the hard part is finding the families that have the kids that are within that age range. And then once you find them, making those connections. Now, the thing that I do love about what we do is that um, Matt and I are pretty intentional about how we plan our trips. So, when we sit down and we say, okay, how are we going to schedule this? We look at where are the people that we know, have met, and love, and have made connections with. Where are those families going to be camping? Where can we intersect with those families so that we can reconnect with them along the way? Um, and that has helped a lot. Um, the kids like being able to see families. I mean, Rosewood and Theo hit it off and, like, we're going to see you guys in Florida. And my kid literally said, so what if I just went to their campground and stayed there that whole time we're in Orlando, or not in, it wasn't Florida because we're going to be at the same campground then. It's when we're in Hershey because we're at 2 different campgrounds, and our campgrounds are literally like, we're half an hour to 45 minutes one way of Hershey, and you guys are half an hour to 45 minutes another way of Hershey. And Rosewood was like, well, why don't I just go stay at their camper for that trip so that I can be near Theo and we can hang out while you guys hang out at the thing. So, I mean, it's, we try to be intentional. We try to make ways for them to see the people that they love. And we try to ask them, is there going to be anybody that, if we go this way, is there anyone that you want to see? Can we meet up with any friends? They have a lot of friends that they've met through gaming. It's not my cup of tea. I think I've talked about this before. I still get that itchy 1990s, new internet kid thing inside where I'm like, you can't meet people on the internet and then go meet them in real life. Stranger danger, people. But it's a different world. I've got to accept that sometimes that's how we make connections. And so,
You just got to
my
be smart about it. That's
yes,
all.
Yeah, I
smart,
mean, this year
smart
my
about
kids
that
took an
stranger
outschool
danger.
class. This year my youngest 2 kids took an outschool class, and I mean, class is relative here, but they're taking a D&D class. And so their D&D class
Hmm.
is set in different eras. So like Judah's still learning about dinosaurs and stuff like that. So I mean, there is a lot of learning going on and the math and stuff inside of it, but it's the friendship connections that's really kept him wanting to
Yeah,
go back every week. And so he does have a handful of kids that he hangs out with, but my 25-year-old met this kid named Matthew. And that was our first full year on the road. So it was the second fall. So we'd been on the road for a whole year. And Matthew was 18 and Justin was like 15. And they still hang out every Friday. Him and Micah and
mm,
Hezekiah, they all get on in game. There's a whole group of them that get on Discord and play all afternoon on Matthew's day off. And, my kids can take the day off on that afternoon as long as they keep their work done with the company. So it works out. So, I mean, those friendships can be long lasting because, I mean, that's a 12-year-old friendship right there. So I think that those friendships that have lasted a lot longer on the road. I think that connection
yes,
is so different. I think that we were in a park years ago, and this isn't teens, this is just kind of ugly people. But we were work camping at a KOA just south of Yosemite, and my daughter was coming down a hill, and she was about 8 at the time. And so she hit a speed bump and went flying, and these 3 girls stood off and laughed at her. And that whole stigma of being the work camper kid was definitely part of that equation. And so that really hurt her feelings, and she didn't like how that felt. But I know Jen has dealt with a lot of that with, because a lot of places don't want work campers' families to interact with the guests in a way that's outside the scope of that. And so that has affected, how my kids saw some of that over the years.
I mean, that's true, but I'll be honest, I think we've been pretty lucky because everywhere we've been hasn't had that stigma. So they didn't care
Maybe it was
if,
because I was at a
our kids went
KOA.
out and played.
Yeah.
That could be. That could be. But I will also say, it's a different dynamic because you are here, you're living here, and the kids that come through here are just passing through. Now they've gotten to play with lots of different kids, but it's just surface relationships. These are
Right.
kids that are just out for the weekend, and they go back to the real world. They're not going to be people that they exchange phone numbers with or try to keep in touch with or anything like that, but it does give them a little bit of community.
That's true. What about mental health on the road? I mean, that's super important, and I want to address it. It's kind of the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we've actually known kids that have, um, attempted things and survived, thankfully. But it could have went any other way, and so we have dealt with some of that on the road in terms of having friends that did that. And what that looked like for them. Those families often got off the road or whatever because they had to. And so, that does play an impact role on your kids and where you're at. Um, Tasha, let's start with you. Are you willing to talk about kind of that space on the road? Because it can get
Yeah,
lonely.
it can. And I'm going to talk about it very vaguely from my kids' point of view because I have not asked them if I can speak on their behalf. So I'm going to speak very vaguely about them, but I'll give some more details about myself openly if that's okay. Um, I have um, seasonal depression that I struggle with. I have anxiety. Um, I take medicine for things like that. And so when I'm like stuck in a space and, it gets dark or I'm like not interacting with people regularly, I struggle with like that really starts to feel heavy for me. Um, and my family can feel that off of me. So that like feeds them as well and feeds how they're feeling. So for myself and for my kids, one of the things that I really try to do is, that whole like touch grass. Rosewood told me that that came from like some sort of anime meme or something. And I was like, I don't know. I just know that it's true. Like, um, getting out and getting into nature and making sure that you're getting sunlight, making sure that you're getting fresh air, and then finding ways to interact with people in meaningful ways. So, I have people in my life, and I know that my kids and my husband do too, that if we're at a point um, where that is starting to kick in, we know that we have someone that we can reach out to and we can say, hey, I'm feeling really down right now. I know that that is getting me and I just need to talk to someone. I need to kind of work through this. Um, and that helps a lot. Sometimes just talking about it is really helpful. I also use an app and I've got 3 out of 4 family members on this app. I'll give you a hint which family member is like kicking against the goads. Um, it's the one that refuses to do most things. Um, but it's called Finch.
I was
There's a
wondering
free
because I
version
use
and
that too.
yeah. I love this app. First of all, because I love birds. Like I love birds. I've got 2 bird tattoos. I've got lines about birds from a Fleetwood Mac song on my arm tattooed. Like I love birds. And so, this you can do a free membership with that, or they've got an upgraded paid one that gives you a little bit more functionality. But you can set goals for yourself that are like wellness goals. So, one of my goals is to get out every day and take a 10-minute walk with a podcast. And that sounds so silly, but like if I am in a place or a campground where maybe I don't know anybody, sometimes I'll find myself just keeping in. I'll just stay in and kind of retreat. So having that on my phone going, hey, have you looked in the mirror and told yourself that you can do it today? Like, things like that where I'm like, ugh, fine, I will put on my shoes and I will go pick up 5 pieces of trash outside. Like, things like that kind of give me that get up and go. And I've actually seen a really a good increase in my um personal behaviors. But also my family members, we use it to like keep each other accountable. So, one of my family members, when they're getting into that kind of down state, they'll start forgetting to eat. They'll start doing things where they stop taking care of themselves so well. And so I can see that because, you check off when you do basic things. And
Right.
so if I'm like, hey, so you haven't done this, like we can talk about it, and it starts conversations for us. So
Well, and I think those
I
open
don't know.
lines of communication are key, and no matter what it is. I mean, if you're making decisions about where you're going or just checking
Yep.
in with your kids, I think that all of those things are super important. RV Roofing Solutions is a nationwide RV roofing company with mobile installers.
One of the biggest factors and benefits of the RV Roofing Solutions system is our product is a low VOC, which is helpful for those who are sensitive to chemicals. It's better for the environment, and it actually works better for the RV roofing industry.
It's a great place to find a quality product.
www.rvroofingsolutions.com.
Jen has a different dynamic than all of us. She has 4 girls in one camper. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that dynamic? Because, I had 5 boys in one camper and 1 girl, but that was way different than 4 girls in one space.
Bring your waiters because the drama is deep. Yeah, I mean, that's honestly that kind of sums it up. It is very dramatic in our trailer. And it's kind of just hit in the last year or so, I would say. It's gotten, before that it wasn't so bad, but now I've got, one teenager, one almost teenager, and then the others just act like teenagers. So, they all follow in each other's shoes. But, if it's not one, it's another. Like, they take turns, they rotate, and they've done this since they were little. Like, even when I had 4 little kids, one would be having a bad day and throwing tantrums all day, and then the next day it'd be a different one. And then the next day it's like they have this schedule or this routine, and they're telling each other, "Okay, today's your day to misbehave, and tomorrow's your day to misbehave." And they just take turns, and it's like the same thing with the drama, it's,
Yeah.
"Oh, this person's going to be dramatic today, and then, it's a different person tomorrow, or this situation pulls this drama out, or whatever." But so it can be tough at times. I'm learning to just let it go, as Elsa would say.
I mean,
Do your girls?
that's pretty much what you have to do as a parent in some ways. I think that
Uh-huh.
parents have ways to connect though. Like, that's why we started Road Schooling Resources, was for parents to have ways to connect online and to have a safe space to have those types of conversations about having a bad day. Or, I don't know how many times, I had a day where one of the kids didn't want to do something with me. I still have those. This morning
Yeah.
I asked them, "Hey, did you get your schoolwork done?" And I got the eye roll. It wasn't verbal at that point, but it was definitely audible. And so,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and even like everyday decisions, if I decide that we're going to go on a hike, and if I choose the trail, it is inevitable that they will complain on the hike, no matter how
Uh-huh.
easy the hike is or how short it is. But if I let them decide, are we going on a hike, and let them decide what trail we're going on, none of them complain. Like, it's just
Yeah.
that tiny little difference makes man, it makes all the world of a difference sometimes.
Okay,
So
I have to ask this question because your kids are right there kind of at that age. But when Rosewood was little, if they fell down and I didn't react, they would brush it off. They would get back up. It was like super kid. They could take on the world. We were golden. But if they fell down and it was something that I thought was big and I was like, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" Suddenly the tears were falling. It was very dramatic.
yes.
Um we were we were at Fenway Ballpark on Labor Day and they they like chipped a trash can with their hip.
Oh.
And I was like, don't look, don't say anything. And we walked a little bit further. And then I did the same thing on my other side. And I was like, oh gosh. And they were like, yeah, I just did that. You didn't even notice. And I was like, no, I noticed. I was just hoping that you would let it go. I was like, it's, when I don't respond, then you just like keep
You
moving.
keep on going, exactly.
But
So I
it's
was
like that
I
with
was the
kids,
bad
like,
mom.
with everything.
When
You
my
were the
oldest
bad
was
mom. What do you
not
mean?
quite 2, we used to, when she was little, you know how babies, when they start walking, they fall all the time. And so we'd go, yay! And we'd cheer for her every time she fell. Well, she fell off the piano and she was playing on the piano like she was playing music. And she fell and she cut right through here, all the way
Ouch.
through. And she
Oh,
stood up
I
and
did that.
she stood up and she yells, "Yay!" And blood is just pouring out of her face. Yes. And so, so
Oh.
I mean, I did not yay them after that, but I definitely tried not to do the, because I mean, that's not any
Right.
better. So, so I mean, like,
Yeah.
accidents on the road, dental on the road. You said at one time, you were a slave to the dentist. We were too, but we did it right before we hit the road. So he'll never
I
forgive me for
know.
this. Justin had 1.5 years left in his braces and we finished it in 4 months. He will never forgive me for that. So, I mean, but you circled back to where you were staying, or did you stay there longer when
We
you did that?
we we did like ping pong, right? So it was like, okay, we've got 4 weeks before we have to come back to see this dentist again. I don't know if you heard the disdain in my mouth when I said the word dentist, but they said these braces can come off on XYZ. We showed up on XYZ and they're like, I think 6 more weeks.
Oh no.
We showed up 6 weeks later. I think another 2 weeks. I'm like, you do understand. I don't live here anymore. Like, this is not our home. So we would go places. We would leave. We would go to Atlanta. We'd come back. We'd leave. We'd go to Florida. We'd come back. We'd leave. We'd go to North Carolina. We'd come back. And so everything was the south or eastern corner because it had to be something that we could drive back and forth to Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
And we just kept coming back until finally I was like, look, tell me what we got to do. Like, what is it? What is the
What are we
problem?
missing?
And they finally were like, okay, well, I guess it's good enough. And I was like, good enough is good enough. Let's do this. So I don't know. It was a treat. But then we did something we probably I don't know that many people would agree with what we did, but we got to the West Coast and needed some dental work in the family and didn't want to circle all the way back to Arkansas for that. And because of our insurance, it was basically like pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to be out of network in California for this situation, or leave California and go all the way back to Arkansas. So we went to Mexico.
Lots of people do
Lots
that.
of people
though.
do that.
Yeah.
Lots
And it
of
was
people
just
do
like
that.
a couple $100 out of pocket.
Yeah, I actually had a
Yeah.
friend in the high desert that actually her son did braces down in Mexico. And I mean, she
Yeah,
would
it was
track him back and forth like every 6 weeks so that they could go do that.
I
And
was
they
like,
would drive
"Hey,
4
I'm here.
hours each way,
Clean my teeth too." So, like,
right?
we all went in, got our teeth cleaned, while they were attending to the one issue that needed to be tended to for the one person. And I went in and I was like, this is running smoother than any dentist office I have ever been in. Your equipment is better than any equipment I've ever seen. And this is the cleanest office I've ever been in. It was so fast. It was so speedy. And I was like, all right, I'm done. Let's
And
go
that's
get
why
some
lots of people
tacos.
do it. I mean, that's just the ultimate
Yeah.
answer is, it is affordable. And I mean, it's not what everybody's going to do. You do need a passport to get into Mexico.
Yep.
And so you
Yep.
need to be
I
smart
did
about it. You need to have an
walk.
exit plan. And you walked in, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we stayed at the Thousand Trails Park that's right outside. Um Algodones is the name of the town in
Yep.
Mexico that we went to. We stayed at the Thousand Trails down there in like right on the corner of Arizona, or right on the line of Arizona and California. The center of the world is right across the street. So we went to the center of the world. I felt so fancy. And then and then we drove Greta the truck over and parked in the parking lot, and we walked across the border. But I did this thing because I do take medicine, and I was like, what happens if we can't get back across the border? I need my medicine. So I took the medicine that was like, if we get stuck there overnight, like, I have to have this medicine or I'm just not going to be okay. So I took that medicine with me and I had the bottles in my backpack. And when we were coming back across the border patrol people didn't want to let me over because they were like, where'd you get all these pills? And I was like, from my doctor's office. Where do you think I got? I was like, look at the labels. But it's because I put 3 months of prescription in one bottle because they give me such big bottles, and then they're like, here's your 3 months prescriptions in 17 bottles, and I condensed. So then he was like, this is not a normal prescription. That was a really long story. I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's the kids aren't quiet about things. And have you ever had that happen? So for us, we were up in Washington, and I'm a military wife. So I know better so I missed the exit. We were going to go to Peace Park, which is right at the border of Canada. And my daughter from the back seat was 12. And so we're driving in and I missed it. So the next exit is the only way to go. And that's the exit to Canada. I did not have their birth certificates with me. I did not have our passports because there was no intention to going into into Canada that day. And so we're driving up. And back then we used to carry this big green container that went in the back of the truck. It was basically a Foot Locker and a military grade one. And so we pull up and I'm like, nobody say anything. And my daughter turns around and goes, you mean anything but like about that thing in the trunk in the back, where all the things are? And she says it close enough within earshot of the border patrol. And so we spend the next 6 hours letting them search our vehicle. And at some point, Frank says, well, be careful when you stick your hand. And the guy's like, well, you're a Marine. Do you have guns? And he's like, no, I have children. There could be gum in between the seats. And so, and so we finally get it all worked out. And then we turn around and we're coming back the other way. And the American side holds us up for 6 hours because they want to know if they're really our children. And I'm like, look, you can let me go home or Frank go home. My campground's like 15 minutes from here. We can go produce their birth certificates and you can hold us hostage. But those are things that families should know about, is have a passport on you if you plan or don't plan to go across the border. Those are super important documentation. Yeah. My kids didn't all have their military IDs back then. And so there wasn't that on them. So, it's all of those things that with teenagers, with kids in general, you have to be mindful of, is that, border crossings are real. And so it's not hard to cross the border. Yep. It's not really hard to get back if you have the right paperwork. So I don't know. As far as teens go, we haven't really touched on it. I know we touch on rallies all the time, and I think they're important in some ways. They give you those experiences that you wouldn't have any other way. My kids went to prom last year, up in Colorado, and we took literally the whole month of May off from shows and events. We still worked, but we didn't do any shows or events just so they could have that time with their friends. And that was a super important time for them. And I wanted to make sure they had that experience. What are some ways that you guys on the road have done different experiences that would you say are above and beyond what other kids get to do? A lot of people will put us down for taking our kids on the road, but I want to, do the highlight reel. What makes it better? Jen, do you want to start with that one?
So one thing, one winter we spent at Death Valley camp hosting, and what was really cool about being there, first, the kids got uniforms, so they got to totally be involved and everything. But what worked out really well is so my oldest wants to go into astronomy. And so she can tell you so much about the night sky. Well, that winter at Death Valley, they had an international dark sky festival where all of these astronauts and astronomers came in to speak, and she got to go to the sessions and learn from these people and go to the ask a astronomer sessions and ask questions and talk to these people face to face and stuff, and like that's an experience that most kids that age don't get to experience. I mean, first of all, it was in the middle of winter, so kids are in school. They're not at Death
Mhm.
Valley, getting to experience this. And so just being able to get out there, like, and for the kids to be able to dive into the stuff they're passionate about.
Yep.
I've got another one that wants to be a veterinarian, when she grows up, and she loves animals. And, so any chance she gets to like go and love on animals or ride horses or different things, like, we had a vet, we just rescued a dog last year, and we did our first vet visit with the dog when we got back up here to South Dakota this summer. And so we found a local, she's a holistic vet, but she can do all of the other stuff because she's professionally trained as well. But, she came by, and, I had told her, about our daughter that wanted to be a veterinarian. And she took the time to like show her everything. And, she brought like the otoscope with the camera so she could see in the ears and learn and everything. And I mean, those are experiences just, you don't get to have when you're going to school. So it's nice to
Mhm.
be able to give those experiences to our kids,
Yeah.
find those opportunities out here.
Well, and I know Tasha had an experience where your kid went to basically a mission, correct? Is that kind of what it was? Can you talk a little bit about that
Yeah.
and how you wouldn't
Yeah.
have even found that experience without this community?
Without you. Uh, Without you, Jennifer. Yeah, um we were looking for something. Rosewood really wanted to kind of step out and do something, and we were looking for something to kind of give them some time away and some time to just, I don't know, be a grown up, I guess. Um Away out of the bunkhouse. And Jennifer said, "Hey, you've got to check out this thing that my friend Tanya does called Traveling with a Purpose, and you should go back and listen to our spooky season episode where I get to talk to Tanya a little bit about some other things that she's involved in." But um, she and her husband do a group. They organize a group called Traveling with a Purpose, um, where they take volunteers to Jamaica 1 to 2 times a year, approximately, sometimes more if they can. And they go and they have a handful of different places that they work at as volunteers. When Rosewood was there, they got to work in a girls' home, and they loved it. They were they were gone in January, and my heart felt like it was on a different planet. And but they loved it, and they had the most incredible time going out and just um we like to say that we hope that our RV spills over into other people just in good ways, that our cup is able to flow over. And that was what Rosewood went and did. They just went and spent that whole period of time just pouring into the lives of others and putting others first. And that is such an important thing for us as a family to be able to do. So, Tanya's website um, is travelingwithapurpose.com, I believe. Um, but we will verify that and put it in the show notes for certain. But I know that they've got a trip coming up that they're planning for at the beginning of 2026. And even if you can't go, there are so many ways to get involved. They take things like mattresses down there. They work within the only autism center in Jamaica. They work with them and they take supplies down there to them. So they're constantly taking supplies that are too expensive to get there. They take full suitcases of supplies down there to them. So they always have an Amazon list that you can get in and get things to help supply those centers. So
And this
yeah,
is
I
near
will
and
get
dear
all of
to
that
her heart
information. We'll put it in the
because
show notes.
isn't her one of her kids adopted from Jamaica? Right. Yeah.
I believe 2 of her children are.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of the ways. The other way is, we've known kids over the years that have, for families that have stayed on the road a long period of time that want to launch somewhere, done a seasonal gig from the RV so they can come back to that location. So, I mean, like things like Cool Works often supply housing locations. I know if you're in a national park, there's opportunities with dorms and stuff like that. So if your kid's not planning to do school the first year, but I think the other thing is so many families come and go. And so for families like mine, I
Mhm.
think it makes it harder and harder for them to try and connect. And so you just have to keep encouraging them to do so because that next connection could be a Rosewood Theo connection. And that, by
Yeah.
then Theo was older and had put up those barriers with a lot of that. And I think that the older our kids get on the road, the easier it is to say, oh, well, I don't want to participate. They have their friends there. So, I mean, it means that me stepping in the gap and introducing myself to the family and taking that extra step. I remember one year we were in Lake Conroe and there was this kid sitting on the roof of their RV. And Theo looked at me and said, I want to be friends with them, but I don't know how. And I said, okay. So I went over and talked to the mom. And I'm not always well received because I'm an older mom. And so it really depends on the family how well that goes. But it was a great experience. In fact, she was
But
the
you
one
have
that
such a
commented.
young heart. You
It's the rest of
do.
this that's the problem. But but yeah, I mean,
That's
people
just
just
silly.
they don't automatically assume that. So, there are people of all ages on the road. And I think we have to be mindful of that. And, even
Yeah.
people that have grandparents that are grandparents on the road sometimes are raising their children.
Yeah.
And that can get really lonely for them too, because they experience a lot of those same problems in terms of connecting. But at the same time, those connections can be so awesome. We have so many extra what I call aunts and uncles on the road. And I know Jen does too, of just people that have loved
Mhm.
on our kids and embraced them
Yeah.
and taught them stuff. And there's just so many. So my advice is don't give up, keep connecting. If you feel lost or alone, reach out. I know that you're all going to know it now, but if I go silent on social media, it means I'm having a hard week. And so, know those
Mhm.
things about the people you care about because they matter. And so that's true for your kids too. Know when their cycles are, know when their, emotional
Yep.
cycles are happening. When you first leave another family that they loved, understand there's going to be a couple really hard days. And so the next step is to find out a time
Yep.
where you can see that family again even if you're planning 6 months out, those connections are so very real. So, thanks for tuning in this week. We
Yeah.
appreciate you. Um, don't forget to like, subscribe, what else? All the things. My age is showing or my
Follow
gray.
us. Find us on Patreon.
Join us over on Patreon. Visit www.learntoRVthepodcast.com. All of the information's there. It has links to all of our pages and everything.
Check our
And the
show
show
notes. You'll
notes.
find it all.
Yep, it's all there. And so thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next time at the Learn to RV podcast.
Love what you're hearing? Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're at it, leave us a review.